Hey everybody, welcome to Far Out Dudes.
It's another week, and we got another far out conversation for you.
And this week, Joseph's got a far out conversation for us. What is this week's conversation about, Joseph?
Slaves.
Yeah, there can be a lot of far out conversations about slaves.
Particularly, Slave George. Does that ring a bell to you?
No, King George and
definitely
George
was not
of
a
the
king.
Jungle.
What about Curious George?
Or George Foreman.
George Foreman. What happened to his grill? You don't see those
He
anymore.
actually sold it in his bank. Have you seen the new movie? His movie, like his bio movie?
No.
Oh, you should watch it. Anyway, go on.
That's the next podcast episode.
This sounds like it's going to be a serious Far Out Dudes conversation, or do you think, or what do you have for us?
We will get in trouble. You know how we laugh because it's just so ridiculous?
Yeah,
You
at the
should
ridiculous
tone
things.
that down this episode, okay?
Alrighty.
Tone it down. So
It's kind of hard for me when I hear something like
Serious
ridiculous
face.
and I just want to laugh at it, but go ahead. That's fine.
you won't be laughing at this.
Oh, okay. Well,
So this
it's a serious
is-
conversation then.
I'm going to try to start a new series called Horrible History.
Okay.
This is episode 1.
Ooh,
So
horrible history.
we all know
Okay.
Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, right?
I'd be surprised if anybody who didn't know that Thomas Jefferson owned slaves.
It's almost common knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say most people in history back in those days owned some type of slave.
Yeah. Especially Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
And his little rumor that he
Slept with-
fathered
Yeah. I don't think it's a rumor. I think
a
people
few
have kind of
mulatto babies.
Yeah, I think it's kind of confirmed. I would say that that's what he did. But anyway, I digress.
That's off topic.
Yep.
But, well, did you know his nephews also owned slaves?
I would say if I was on the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire,
Mhm.
and that was like my first question, I would probably not ask the audience.
It'd be the $100 question.
It would be the $100 question.
Simple yes
and
or
I would
no.
go yes.
Well, his nephews, Lilburn, we're going to call him Lilburn.
Okay, a little burn.
Lilburne.
Was he a little burnt? Okay.
There was a little foreshadowing there for you, Lilburn.
Okay.
But, so his nephews, Lilburn and Isham Lewis, owned them.
Isham
owned some
Lewis.
slaves.
Okay.
And these two were not only nephews of Thomas Jefferson,
Okay.
but related to Meriwether Lewis. Now, Meriwether Lewis, does that ring a bell? Like the first name?
When I hear of the last name Lewis, I think of like Joe Louis, the boxer.
Okay.
And then when I hear of Merriweather, I think of like Floyd Mayweather, the boxer. I don't know why boxing is coming to my mind
Well,
today, but that's what's.
that's a weird combination
Okay.
and very today,
So
very modern.
would Joe Louis and Floyd Mayweather?
They have
be?
nothing to do with this.
Okay. All right.
So Meriwether Lewis, you know Lewis and Clark expedition.
yes. What was
Meriwether?
what was
his
Lewis's
first-
what was Lewis's last name?
That was his last name.
Oh.
Meriwether is his first name. You think it was Lewis and Clark?
I thought
like
Lewis
his
and,
name?
Yeah, I thought Lewis and Clark were their first names.
We're gonna move on. So Lewis and Clark are their last names.
Okay.
Expedition.
All right. Okay.
So these nephews not only are nephews of Thomas Jefferson, but
Okay.
they're related to Meriwether Lewis of Lewis and Clark expedition.
Oh wow.
So they were ahead of their times.
Wow. Okay.
Ruining the country. So Slave George Lewis helped in the household doing kitchen upkeep and stuff around the house.
Wait, so he was related to Meriwether Lewis?
I didn't look into it. I didn't do the research, but I'm guessing that the slaves take the last names of the owners
Okay.
at the time. Okay.
Okay.
So he helped in the household doing kitchen and upkeep around the house. And in early 1811, Lilburn and Isham were mourning their recently deceased mother
Okay.
and their brother who passed away the year before. And Lilburn also lost his wife in 1811, and he had remarried in the next year in 1812 and had begun struggling to support his wife and 5 kids.
Oh wow. George Lewis was having difficulty paying. I think I messed the whole like.
Yeah, you weren't listening.
No, I wasn't.
So George Lewis is the slave,
Okay.
what this whole subject is about.
Yes.
He helped in the kitchen in the household.
Okay.
Okay.
Of whose household again?
Lilburn.
Lilburn. Okay.
Lilburn.
Okay.
So in early 1811, Lilburn and his brother Isham were mourning their recently deceased mother and still mourning their
Oh.
other brother who passed away the year before.
Yeah.
And so Lilburn also lost his wife in 1811.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he was
So there was a lot of death just with the Lewis family alone,
There-
along with their slaves.
yes,
Okay.
and so he had remarried the next year in 1812.
Oh, wow.
And he was struggling to support his new wife and 5 kids.
George.
Lilburn,
Little Burn lost his wife too.
yes,
You know what? I thought you had said George lost his wife.
no, Lilburn.
Okay, Little Burn
You
lost
see in my notes here, Lilburn
Yes,
also
yes, yes.
lost his wife in
So
1811.
so Little Burn lost his mother
His other brother
and his other brother
and his
and
wife,
and then his wife passed.
all in 2 years.
All in 2 years.
Yes.
And then a year later he remarries.
Yes,
It's kind of the way that things go, but okay.
And now,
And George is still in the kitchen cooking.
yes,
Okay. All right. I'm trying to put all the pieces together in my
Yes.
mind.
So hopefully everyone's back on track now.
I'm back on track.
And so
Fine.
Isham, Lilburn's brother,
Mhm.
other brother, the only surviving one now, went to visit Lilburn for extended time.
Okay.
And the following night, George accidentally broke a glass water pitcher.
Oh no.
And in a drunken rage, both Lilburn and Isham tied George to the kitchen floor
Oh jeez.
and gathered the other 7 slaves and ordered them to build a large fire in the fireplace.
oh no.
Now, Lilburn then locked the door behind them and told them he will put an end to their insolence once and for all.
And this is all stemming from their drunken rage.
This is stemming from
That-
them losing,
and-
at least
and
Lilburn
having
losing
a-
everybody.
You know, it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, he was emotionally angry and, all that. Like, dude, you don't tie up somebody, a human being.
You don't have slaves to begin with.
Yeah, well, yes. But needless to say, okay, just go on.
So-
It's terrible.
He then got an axe and struck the 17-year-old George in the neck. They both coerced the slave into dismembering George's body and burned the remains in the fire.
Yeah. What are you bringing to the Far Out Dudes podcast, bro?
Horrible history.
This is terrible
Horrible
history. But you know what? This is the kind of history people need to understand and listen to sometimes, so they know the atrocities that have happened here as well.
Yeah,
So-
because it's not just simple, oh, they took them as slaves. Like, they're not just, oh, they lived well, they were just slaves. No, there were terrible, horrible things happening.
Yeah.
So,
Ugh.
dismembered his body, started to burn it, and his body was burning until 2 a.m. when an earthquake hit western Kentucky and the chimney collapsed. And during the aftershocks, the next day, Lilburn ordered his slaves to clean up the body out of the fireplace and start to rebuild the chimney. And when they were rebuilding the chimney, they put George's body, like parts, into the rubble of the chimney as they were rebuilding it to hide the body.
Oh.
Yeah.
So George's body parts are probably still in that chimney if it still stands today.
I hope it doesn't still stand today. I didn't.
You didn't even look into the see if that
didn't-
building and
This
that chimney
was
is
horrible enough that I didn't.
Oh.
So in March 1812, the following year, because this happened in December 16th, I believe. A neighbor dog found George's skull and left it out in an open road. And neighbors found it and began to inquire about it and found it to be the missing slave
George.
So
they
and that he had been, and obviously put it
so
together
they were
that
able to
he had
figure
been
out
murdered.
that by just looking at that skull. You would think that maybe some skin tissue and other things were still attached to it because it may have not been completely burned all the way.
Probably.
Or
Plus,
you-
back then, I mean, when people died or something happened, you would know better. There wasn't much of a mystery.
Yeah.
Like if they got eaten by wolves or they died or something, you wouldn't just find a skull somewhere.
Yeah.
But this dog found his skull and left it out in the open road.
Yeah.
And at the time and place in the United States, torturous murder of a slave was illegal.
Oh, well, I mean,
Which
obviously,
didn't make any sense to me. 'cause
Obviously,
torturous murder. So you can just
so you can murder, but if you did, as long as you didn't torture them,
it was
that's-
okay.
Jeez.
That's the time and place back then. Can
That-
you believe
yeah.
it? Can you believe that was a real thing that happened?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I guess we shouldn't be surprised though,
Yeah.
because some of the things some of the history. I mean, even in history class, a lot of people try to say that they don't teach about slavery anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But this is some of the stuff that I actually heard when I was in high school in history class, hearing about some of these slave atrocities that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it just it hits you, man, when you hear about these things, like the terrible things that used to happen. Like
The people who are just trying to survive.
Nowadays, we're kind of like, how did we ever allow it to go that way? But it's kind of one of those things, like slavery is still happening till this day, and people just don't bat an eye because it's not happening where we're
Well, it's not the same type of slavery either. Like, it's not just open and...
No, there's slavery that's open right now that's just happening in other countries. I can't name them off the top of my head right now, but mostly in Middle Eastern countries right now is where it's happening. I mean, you can look it up. There's still modern day slavery, not to mention sex trafficking, work trafficking. I mean, that's happening in the U.S. right now. That's like people are just
I've heard about some of the Chinese or so. Like, they'll bring people here on work visas and have them work it off, paying them like 50 cents a day or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just takes them years to pay it off. So it's another form of wage slave.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what people don't realize is like all the major cities in America right now have sex trafficking going on, which those poor women are technically modern. That's modern day slavery right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's under the umbrella of a different kind of slavery.
Yeah. You know what's a good movie? I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's Sound of Freedom. Have you seen the movie Sound of Freedom?
I haven't, but I've heard about it.
It's actually a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch Sound of Freedom. It's actually about modern day slavery where they come.
Jim Caviezel, right?
Yeah, they take young kids and transport them to different parts of the country for sex slavery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
terrible.
I don't know if you can say that on YouTube.
Probably cut it, that part,
Okay.
but we'll see.
Yeah.
So back on topic. So the dog pulled the skull out, left it in an open road, and people found it and connected the dots that it was I guess he said that he like ran away, like escaped slave, but they connected the dots that he was murdered and he didn't run away, that it was the slave. And so Lilburn and Isham were both arrested and charged, and they were released on bail the following April. So April 9th, to be exact. So the following month, they were released on bail.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And that's when Lilburn convinced his brother into a suicide pact.
Oh.
Yeah. And when showing
Wait. So that's interesting, I guess. So, I mean,
it's called conscience.
justice is going to happen, I guess, but
Not the legal justice.
yeah, not the one that we would want,
Mhm.
right? But at the same, it's still, something more should have happened to these guys. They're obviously gonna take the cowardly way out instead of being.
Well, let me finish.
Okay,
Let me
sorry.
finish.
Sorry.
So he talked his brother into a suicide pact.
Okay.
And when showing his brother how to use the rifle, he shot himself. So he did it. He accidentally shot himself.
So he unintentionally actually shot himself.
He completed the pact early.
Okay.
So Isham lost his nerve and didn't go through with it.
Okay.
And now being held on his brother's suicide and murder
Oh, snap.
of slave George, he escaped jail and disappeared. No
Right
one knows
off.
how or what. But several weeks later, he joined the army to fight in the War of 1812.
Okay.
He's presumed to die in that war.
Okay.
So,
Supposedly.
yeah, most likely he did die, but he
Yeah.
joined the army to fight in the War of 1812.
Okay.
But they both died, unfortunately, and that is horrible history. Not so much part on them dying, but
Yeah.
poor slave George, who was just 17.
He was 17?
Yeah.
God,
It
that's
happened
terrible.
on the night of December 15th.
That, I would say, is horrible history.
It's
That's crazy.
very horrible.
Yeah.
All because he accidentally dropped and broke a glass water pitcher.
Yeah.
And because they were drunk and
you know what?
mourning. some losses.
and this is the reason why you shouldn't be a drunkard, because what that's the kind of things that happen. I mean, people get behind the wheel, they kill families, and most of the time when
they're okay. They're the ones that and make it
well,
out.
that's because most of the time their bodies are like flimsy and can take the impact without any issue, whereas the people they hit are wide awake and they tense up, and most of the time they pass away. But still, I mean, this is what happens when, I mean, I can't even talk. This is the whole history of George is just terrible. So if you find it out there, if you know that the house is still standing and that chimney's still there, comment down below. Let us know.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this first episode of Horrible History. If you liked it, give a thumbs up. Not saying you liked what happened, but if you found it to be interesting,
I would say that.
Give a thumbs up.
Yes. So if you found the horrible history to be interesting, yes. If you found the horrible history to be interesting and it's more of history that you would like to know, and this doesn't necessarily have to be American history. It could be any history around the world that you would like to hear more about that we have in store. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Let us know that this was interesting to you, I would say.
This is the end.